Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me for a new season of alternative news videos here in UFO One studio. And before I get started, we're going to be talking about the elections, but I did invite Paladin WH back on the show, and I know he's got some stuff he's been cooking up, and he's working on presenting, and so I did invite him on the show here. If he wants to present some stuff, we can do another show together. We'd love to have him back on. So we're going to get started. This is going to be a quick video. I just wanted to get back into a new season of the alternative news. I know I haven't done it for a couple months, so we're going to get started here with some information. Here's something. Obama is saying that the internet is the single biggest threat to our democracy. This is just recently something that has come out, and just more of the same nonsense that we've been hearing coming from Obama and people around him. And what do I have next? Let's see. Just bear with me as I get used to working this software and equipment and stuff that I have here. So it says here the Nevada election was thrown out over discrepancies. 153,000 votes in question. And then Georgia recount gets Trump net. GAI. So, no, I don't think they threw the entire election out. I don't know. I haven't been following it extremely closely, but it sounds like there's at least 153,000 votes in question there. So, we'll have to keep our eye on that. And then I've got a couple of quick videos we'll present to you. One of them might already be on YouTube if you know where to find it. The other one I don't think it is. But here, let me show you this next article here. Air Force General treasonous Obama used illegal CIA software to steal the 2020 election, and we'll actually watch that video now where he talks about that. We'll watch it together. I've got it on the plasma screen to my right, and let me see if I can get that started for us now.
Well, evidence of voting fraud continues to grow, and insiders in the intel community warn that the CIA could be behind efforts to meddle with the election. Here's One America's Pearson Sharp.
Members of America's intelligence community are raising red flags that the 2020 election is being outright stolen from the American people. Retired Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney, who was formerly the Assistant Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, says two pieces of software called Hammer and Scorecard are being used by Democrats as a superweapon for voter fraud.
People must understand that this software was used to overturn the 2020 election. The first time in the United States' history that massive amounts of cyber warfare have been used in our voting system.
McInerney says the software was designed all the way back during President George W. Bush's first term in office.
Hammer is a surveillance software developed by the CIA. The programmer was Dennis Montgomery. He developed this in 2003 to go after radical Islamists. Scorecard is a program that was developed for CIA that manipulates voting booths.
McInerney explained Scorecard was intended to overturn elections in foreign countries to install leaders favorable to the United States. But then, under Obama, it was turned to an even more sinister purpose.
Well, that was done by the Obama administration 2 weeks after Obama came in 2009, February 3rd to be exact, moved it out of CIA into a secret SCIF in Fort Washington, Maryland. And then they started listening on U.S. citizens to include chief justices, prominent Americans, politicians, etc. When that happened, Dennis Montgomery, who invented the programs, became a whistleblower.
Under former FBI Director James Comey and former CIA Director John Brennan, both Hammer and Scorecard were redesigned to target American citizens, specifically the left's political opponents like Donald Trump. This software is highly illegal, but with President Obama's blessing, these deep state operatives went to work on not only discrediting Donald Trump, but on undermining the 2012 and 2016 elections. The programs were countered in 2016, but now in 2020, they were successful and managed to sabotage the election of President Trump by instead reallocating his votes to Joe Biden. McInerney says it was primarily used in the battleground states and is evident in the massive vote dumps for Biden in the early hours of November 4th, the morning after Election Day.
We should be demanding from the president to expose these numbers publicly. You see news networks like Fox that are ignoring it. All of the mainstream media, they flipped on us. They do not want to hear it. They won't let people like me on. And they don't want to hear anybody mention it. They discount it completely. But we know it's true because we watched it being prepped. They used it in the primaries.
McInerney believes if not for vote tampering, this would have been an overwhelming win for President Trump, but that this information must be given to the right judges so they can act on it, and quickly. If that doesn't happen, he predicts it could have dire consequences for future elections.
If Republicans lose this election, they will never win another one again. It will really be hammer and sickle. And that flag of Russia and the Soviet Union and communism will be flying in the United States. China and Russia and others will own us.
Pearson Sharp, One America News. Want to see more videos like this? Visit OANN.com for immediate access to all the clips you've been waiting to see.
Okay, so you heard the general talking there a moment ago about election fraud and two different ways that the military intelligence and the intelligence community are aware of. At least two ways that they're doing it are they're pointing out, they're highlighting two different ways in that video that we just watched together there. And I believe that's the first time I'm the first one to put this one on. This next one that we're getting ready to watch together I is already on YouTube. I know it's on at least one channel, although I don't think it's on any other channels, so it's rare. I think it's also a good video to watch. But before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to John D'Souza. John D'Souza, retired FBI. He's been talking about this stuff that we're talking about tonight. And actually, I'm actually going to leave a link in the description for John's channel as well. So I don't want to get behind the desk on the screen. You see the desk. Behind the desk, I've got a mouse, and I can show different things on the screen. But I'm doing it all by myself, folks. So just bear with me, as I don't have anyone else here in the studio or working with me. So the last but not least, we'll take a look at this. And FEC chairman debunks MSM claims of no fraud. So MSM was claiming no fraud, and the FEC chairman debunked that. So basically, FEC chairman believes that there is fraud and has seen evidence or has evidence of fraud. And we'll watch that video now. Let's see.
Trey Traynor is the chair of the Federal Election Commission, which oversees public funding in presidential elections. Trey, thanks so much for joining me here. I'll start with this. What is your reaction to what's happening in Pennsylvania? Do you believe, or do you know, are observers able to watch the ballots being counted, as Pam Bondi pushed back on?
Well, based upon what I know, observers have not been allowed into the polling locations in a meaningful way as required by the court order that the Trump campaign received. When they have been allowed in, the goalpost has been moved. They were supposed to be allowed within 6 feet of the ballots, and they have not been allowed that meaningful access. And our whole political system is based upon transparency to avoid the appearance of corruption. And that's what we do at the FEC every day. And now we're seeing this play out in Pennsylvania and other states where there's not transparency in this election.
Trey, as we move forward in modern times, everyone has a cell phone. There's video just about everywhere. You could see just about everything. And the video we just showed earlier appears to show someone filling out the ballot at the table. There's so many videos out there. And again, we have to confirm all of this stuff. But do you believe there is voter fraud out there, specifically in Pennsylvania and other states that are weighing heavily in on this election?
I do believe that there's voter fraud taking place in these places. Otherwise, they would allow the observers to go in. When you have claims of, 10,000 people who don't live in the state of Nevada having voted in Nevada, you have the video showing where people are, they're either duplicating a spoiled ballot right there, or they're in the process of just marking a ballot that came in blank. For a voter. That's a process that needs to be observed by election observers. State law allows those observers to be in there. And if they're not, then the law is not being followed, making this an illegitimate election.
All right, let's go back to that video if we can. The video we're watching there, if he's filling out the ballot on the top right there, so this would be fraud, Trey.
If he is filling out that ballot, yes. Now, sometimes they go through a process of duplicating a ballot when a ballot can't be fit into a voting machine because it's torn up. And we don't know if that's happening here. But if he's absolutely marking these ballots as just blank ballots that came in that didn't have votes, then that would be a voter fraud.
He seems to be working that pin up and down on that sheet very intently there. And it's not the only video that we've seen. There's so much out there as well. And I'm sure this will be presented at a later date and perhaps for the court system to find out. But what about this? The fact that more than a dozen down ballot Republicans scored huge victories on election night. But the person at the top of the ticket, President Trump, seeing his margins in places like Georgia, Pennsylvania, continue to shrink by the hour, most notably around 4 a.m. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you look back at 1871, it was Boss Tweed who said, I don't care who votes as long as I get to be the one who counts the votes. And sometimes that's also attributed to Joseph Stalin, but I think he was probably quoting Boss Tweed at the time. In every instance we have here where the states are too close to call, they're controlled by the Democrat Party, particularly in the urban areas where they're being counted. And it just seems unimaginable to me that you could have down ballot races where Republicans are winning across the board. And that happened across the country. The Democrats failed to flip any state legislature, failed to win any seats in Congress, in the U.S. House, and yet the president is losing in all of these states.
There's so many questions, and that's all we're doing. We're asking the questions about it because they are there. And so is the president's son, Don Jr. He actually tweeted this out this morning. He said this: "When America sees everything we are uncovering, they will be disgusted, and even the media won't be able to pretend voter fraud isn't real. Ending this crap once and for all will be fundamental to preserving our republic and faith in our democracy." So, Trey, my question is this for you. Have you yourself or anyone on your team, have you been briefed on any of this evidence they say they have been uncovering beyond what the public is already reporting in the videos we've seen? What have you heard? What have you been briefed on?
Well, we really haven't been briefed on any of it, given that we don't, the states control the elections and the FEC really doesn't have any jurisdiction over how these are being handled at the state level. For the federal level, they would communicate through the Elections Assistance Commission. But from what I've seen of the lawsuits, there are very valid allegations that are being made that need to be fully vetted by the court system. And ultimately, we're probably going to see these things end up in the U.S. Supreme Court with various challenges under the 14th Amendment.
And this is what we thought that we'd see. Pack your patience. Last question for you. I know that you said that you wanted Democrats wanted to limit money in politics, but spent $100 million each against McConnell and in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. Additionally, Bloomberg blew $100 million in Florida. That didn't work out. Can you expand on that for me?
Well, we've seen the big issue for the Democrats when they took control of Congress was HR 1, and they want to limit the amount of participation via money in politics, and yet they were the biggest spenders in this election cycle. When you have over $300 million being spent by one party to take out, one state and two sitting incumbent senators, it's just, to me, seems like they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth. Where they say they want to have change in our electoral system and limiting money in politics, and then they become the big spenders in the process.
All right, Trey Traynor, it's always great to see you, sir. I know you're a busy guy. We appreciate your time. Thank you, Trey.
Thank you for having me.